How you going? My name is Darren Pope, just call me Daz. I'm the group leader for Team Fire and Ice. First of all, just some apologies about this mustache. I've got it all set up for a Peaky Blinders fancy dress in the first week of August, so by the time I see you guys face to face, I'll more than likely be gone. Looking forward to meeting you all.
I'm Scott Flower, just call me Scott or Scotty. I'm also one of the other group leaders for the Rock and Ice. And what we're going to go on with this morning is just going over some of the equipment that we'll be using during the Alpine phase of Rock and Ice. So we'll start off with harnesses.
So there's a few types of harnesses that we can get out on the hill with us. There's basically the climbing harnesses and the mountaineering harnesses, and there are some differences between the two. The ones that we've got here at the moment are the sort of generic climbing harnesses that we use here in the climbing store. Reasonably lightweight, adjustable leg loops and waist loops, and you're more than likely going to see these out on the rock, especially when we're doing things like ice climbing, simply because they're a little bit more comfortable. However, the mountaineering harnesses in particular are maybe a little bit more practical when we're out doing mountaineering in particular, mainly because they're a lot lighter. They carry a little bit less gear. They're not designed for a full trad rack like you'd expect to see on the crag. However, and they're not really there for sort of to absorb multiple falls. But with these, they're super lightweight. They can take on less gear, and also they are just easily crunchable back into your pack. But more importantly, you can undo the leg loops and get them on without stepping through the leg loops with a pair of crampons on, because it's hard enough doing it during the day in bright sunshine. However, trying to get your harness on in crampons at night in poor weather, which is the go-to sort of standard that we all try and train to use the gear in, it can be a bit of an epic.
All right, so we'll move on with the boots now. Okay, so what we have here is just a standard hiking boot. It's medium cut and it's waterproof, and it's quite flexible, and it's got good grip for hiking. However, when we head into the mountains, we're looking for something a bit more different. So we still want our boot to be waterproof. However, you're going to find that your mountain boots are going to be a bit thicker. They're going to have more insulation, so that keep your feet warm, obviously, in the snow and whatnot. Also, with these boots, you can see there's pretty much no flex in the sole of these boots. Okay, that's important when it comes to climbing and using crampons and ice climbing, so that you just maintain a stiff sole and you get better purchase. There's also sort of boots which we don't have here, but may be issued to you from AAA, is that the plastic boots. Okay, so they're a bit like a ski boot, big plastic outer shell. However, you can remove the inner. Okay, being able to remove the inner is handy if the boot gets wet through sweat or water, and you can take the inner out and you can kind of dry that inner out overnight.
So in particular with the mountaineering or ice climbing boots, they got toe and heel welts ready to accept a crampon. You can see the way that they're grooved in the back and on the front there, and when you get your crampons issued, depending on which style you get, you'll see that they just slot in quite nicely, and you can reef them up tight enough to make sure they stay on the boot, but not too tight to cut off circulation.
You can see this boot, although it's a mountain boot, it doesn't have a toe welt. However, it does have a heel welt, and there are crampons that work with this as well.
All right, so we'll move on to the crampons then. As we just discussed earlier on, most types of crampon will fit most types of mountaineering and ice climbing sort of boot, and there are multiple combos you can find. Now, when you're looking at a crampon itself, you'll see it initially when you put them down in front of you on the floor that they are orientated left and right, so it's pretty easy to figure out which ones are left and right. And they're also quite easily adjustable. They don't all do the same, but these ones in particular, you can just lift this little tab and you can open them or close them to make them longer or shorter. That's as long as it'll go with that one there. So other attachments they've got, so we've obviously got the strapping that is attached to the side of the crampon, and that'll wrap around the boot through the front toe and back in, and then cinch up between these two rings here. They've also got the anti-balling plates. These are here just to prevent the build-up of snow. So in particular, when you're when you're using crampons in wet snow and you do start to get a bit of a build-up underneath there, these will try and sort of prevent that because they're quite a soft sort of material. But in short, if you are struggling with that, you can just give them a quick bash with the walking axe and they should just drop out. They come in 10 and 12 point. I think the majority of the ones we've got here in the macro store are all 12 point. And they've got the mountaineering specific ones have the 2 vertical sort of like points at the front here as well. So you can get a decent bit of medium level ice climbing out of these ones.
And as we spoke about before, this boot without the toe welt is perfect for this sort of crampon where it just straps over the toe there. The other crampon here, this one has the toe bails, which are designed to go in the welts of the boot. As such, they have the toe in the heel welt. And we'll go through the precise method of fitting later when we get down to Canberra. However, same as the other version, then you have the straps that continue. And we'll do that up there.
All right, so we'll just move into the 2 different types of walking axe that we've got here. When you get issued your axe, you're going to notice the top of the axe, they're all rated. You'll find that the walking axe is particularly going to be B rated, which is out to about 280 kilos. And then with the more techie ones, they'll actually be rated as technical with a T rating at the top, and that's rated to about 400 kilos. And the reason for that is walking, you're just there for walking. They're not going to be put into hopefully too much force, but these could be designed for a bit of mixed climbing, just to withstand a little bit more force. Talking about the parts of the axe itself, we'll start from the bottom. So you've got the spike here, then you've got the shaft, then the crown with the pick, and then the adze. And Scott will discuss the other options rather than the adze. And there's a small space for a carabiner here, and that's also an ideal spot either here or in this little gap here to get your leash in. Same with this one, as you can see with the T-rated axe, there's a spike with a spot for the carabiner there. There's an area here for a carabiner or a leash, and then once again this goes into like a shovel shaped sort of adze. And we got a pick with quite an aggressive point here, and then we got the serrated edge to make sure that it bites onto the ice itself. Now with these adze, what they're designed to do is basically just cut snow and ice. So you can kick steps in here. I've dug a full survival shelter just using one of these. Took a bit of time, but it worked. So with the leashes themselves, there's a few options, and with the climbing climbing axes, there's a few options there as well. Now personally, I just have a hollow block sterling press, quite a large one, so I can get my whole glove in and I can reach over the top. So I've got a little bit of protection there and a little bit of a fail-safe. If I did let go, I wouldn't lose my axe down the hill. With the other axe, now this one just can be connected onto the strong point of your harness or onto the side or wherever you like. This one's a little bit longer. It is all personal preference. Some people, in particular when they're in steep environments, won't use a leash at all. The theory behind that, I suppose, is if they did take a peel and this is connected to you in any way, then you've got the washing machine with this coming around and it could cause you some damage, whereas if it's not connected to you, you're not going to get damage, but you've lost your axe forever. So just a couple of things to think about when you're looking to set up your axe for walking and mountaineering, general mountaineering.
All right, so what we're going to have a look now is the ice climbing axes, are sometimes called ice tools. So you'll notice that this ice climbing axe here, compared to the walking axe, your ice tools are generally a fair bit shorter, and they would all have a curved shaft. That gives you hand clearance when you're banging into the ice there, so you don't hit your hand in your knuckles. Again, compared to the walking axe, you'll see the walking axe, the curve of the pick here is a classic downwards curve, whereas the curve on your ice tools is a reverse curve. Okay, so it curves down and then curves back up, and that just makes it a lot easier when you're pulling that back out of the ice. This is another ice tool here, and you'll notice this doesn't have the adze. This has a hammer on the back here, okay? So that's handy for banging in any of your ice and snow anchors on the back there. It's handy when you're climbing. Generally, you sort of carry one of each, so you have the adze for digging out bits, and you have the hammer for banging in other bits. leashes, again, no change to your walking axes. Okay, you can have them as a lanyard so that you don't lose your tool, such as this one here. Okay. Or your other option is a leash like this, which you put your hand in and it gives you something to rest on, so you don't need to grip the axe so hard. You can simply just rest your hand in there. Finally, so another option is the leashless tool. You still have a grip down here, okay, for your hand that you can slide up and down wherever you need it. Slide it all the way up and out of the way when you're placing your tool as a anchor, and you slide it back down. You have a rest there for your hand, same as this one. However, there's no leash there. I wouldn't recommend going leashless for the most part, though. I have seen a few of these go sliding down the hill.
So it's a bit of a personal preference when it comes to leashing themselves. So, some climbers actually don't like to have a leash. I suppose the theory with that is if there is an axe connected to you on a leash and you release that axe in a fall, it's there in proximity, ready to give you the good news. Whereas if you haven't got a leash, then it's gone forever, which is also a bit of bad news. As Scott mentioned earlier on with the ice climbing, like most of us will have leashes just to prevent them from falling. Now, the most important thing, well, one of the most important things to think about when you are doing your leash is its length, especially if you want to have a bit of a break. Like these ones in particular, I mean, I've got a little chassis. I'm a bit of a short ass, so if I clip this into me now and then I put both of those axes at full length and sit down, I won't be able to reach the axes, so that can turn into a problem. So there are other options that we can discuss further down the track, maybe a couple of Purcells or custom fit sort of almost umbilicals straight from the strong point of your harness. Me personally, on a walking axe, I like to sort of meet in the middle, so I don't have one of these big long leashes. I just use, not particularly this product, but it's a sterling hollow block of a certain length, which is enough to sort of like cat's paw through here, and it's big enough to take my glove and go through and manage the position of the axe as I'm going through, and it also acts quite nicely as a soft connector for a carabiner. Sweet. All right, so what we're talking about now is we've got a few different types of carabiner that we could potentially get issued to us. Generally, we've got the sort of alloy screw gate that you'll see knocking around quite a bit. Quite straightforward there. And you have this is a tri-lock HMS carabiner, so the HMS ones are quite wider, so they can accept basically a clove hitch or a munter hitch. And they're just 3 movements, 1, 2, and then 3 to open them up. And then we've got the heavy steel screw gate carabiners, which are heavy and we're probably not going to see on the rock, but thought we'd stick them on there anyway. So just very briefly, just some checks that you're looking at when you get issued your carabiner. Just a quick visual inspection to make sure there's no obvious damage to it. Maybe have a feel around with your hand for any obvious sort of like nicks or burrs in the metalwork itself. Make sure that the gate is operated nice and smoothly, and you can move it back and forth, and as you're moving you can look inside there and you can see if there's any corrosion or any rust or anything like that. And otherwise, when it's on a visual inspection with that, you'll know that they're usually pretty good. Helmets, so there's a few helmets knocking around. I think AJ spoke about a typical sort of climbing helmet. There's like the foam ones and some sort of hybrid style ones. This one is in particular designed for, this is a half dome, isn't it? These are particularly designed for ice climbing and ice climbing. They're EN 12492 rated for mountaineering and ice climbing. So they're obviously pretty good to go, as opposed to other ones you might see knocking around the crag, which are just like foam only or not particularly designed for its purpose, basically just protection from falling ice. So belay devices, there's heaps knocking around. You might just see a generic sort of like bug type device, or more than likely you're going to see a sort of a multi-purpose belay device like a DMM pivot, or the Petzl, what's the Petzl one called?
Reverso.
Reverso, that's the one. So in the store here we have the pivots, and they're actually quite good. So you can do your normal sort of belaying from that, or you can use it in sort of in guide mode also. We'll go to this in depth a bit later on. But in guide mode, it just basically acts as a progress capture when you're bringing someone up, and if they take a peel, it locks in quite nicely there. But once again, we'll have a chat about that when we get a bit more face to face. Belay devices. So just one thing to think about when you are using your belay devices, check your rope diameter, especially if you're using, say, 11 mil in these sort of devices, and even more especially if the rope gets wet or frozen, because it is a beast to try and screw through these little holes. In particular, if you're using 2 ropes now we use half ropes when you're putting through on both sides, but just something to keep in mind is you can make your life quite hard work if you don't think about the diameter of your rope and the compatibility with the belay device. Cool.